All the content contained in this webcast is for informational purposes only. The investments and strategies contained in this webcast may not be suitable for you. Please consult your own independent financial advisor before making any investment or trading decisions. Good morning, traders and investors around the world, and welcome to Tuesday's edition of premarketinfo.com, where we prepare you for this very busy earnings Tuesday. Dennis, S&P's getting a nice pop here off settlement in the pre-market, currently trading at 1367 and a quarter.
They are getting a little bit of a pop here, Joel. We were trading up overnight, just a little bit off the high at 69 and a quarter.
Well, we have really major resistance not up until yesterday's high, which was 1374.75, and that coincides with Friday's low right there in that 1373 area. So resistance is moving down. On the downside, Dennis, the close is going to be a good number. If we don't take that out, we're good to go north for the rest of the day. And I just want to point out to our traders the low yesterday, 1354. If you were holding out for 1352.50, which has been the low of the move, you did not get filled. The buyers stepped up to 1354. In this decimal Latin world, we'll call that a double bottom. And Dennis, I'm almost ready to say the correction may be over.
Really, Joel? Whoa!
Yeah. I mean,
Stop
it's
the
not much of a
press.
correction. But as long, and let me preface this, as long as that 1352.50 holds, potential double bottom, 75 points. They beat a lot of stocks up. Haven't been able to get this thing over 13, under 1350. So just basing it on the numbers. But the market is up and Apple's down, Dennis.
Yeah, and a little bit of nervous hands going into the report. It looks like Joel Apple's down $6 this morning. Obviously sold off. Didn't quite get to Joel's 550 level. Only got down to 556. But is weaker here this morning. Sometimes you see these stocks go for the pre-earnings run. It'll be interesting to see. Obviously, Apple reports after the bell, so it'll be interesting to see if it can get a little bit of a lift before the earnings report throughout the day. It's going to be hard to say. Like this stock, Joel, can move $50 either way on this report. I think everybody is going to be really watching it. It's going to be a gauge for the overall market. I mean, how do you get a more influential report than this one?
Yeah, I wanted to put 100 points in my weekly outlook, and you made me change
I
it.
know you were saying it could go down 100 points. It's like, well, it could, it could bounce around. I'm like, 100's pretty aggressive estimate. If it moved 50, and it could go either way too. We're not saying necessarily might go down. It's hard to say. They come out, they really beat again. I mean, look at last time.
Well, something happened here, Dennis, because this stock hit 580 real early this morning. So I'm not sure if some news has come out or someone thinks they know something about the earnings. But yeah, we traded it at when I got up this morning at 580 at 5:40 a.m. And now we've sold off all the way to 563.33. So those are some pretty good parameters for you folks. Monday's high will be a good number now that we're 12 points away from it. I mean, this thing could bounce between 560 and 580 all day. I would use 568.33 as a swing number. Keep an eye on yesterday's low, which was 555.62, all the way down to our March 13th low at 555.75. Before we move on to all the earnings stocks, Dennis, got to talk a little bit about ExxonMobil yesterday. Really clawed its way back in the market. And now here it is, Dennis. We talk about double tops, triple tops. We got a quadruple top here at 86 at the $86 level.
Yeah, Joel. If you don't believe anything in technical analysis, this kind of proves, maybe that you should start incorporating at least a little bit of it in. I mean, this 86 level is the high for the last 3 days virtually. We've got a high at 85. The first day was 86.05, 85.92, 85.92, 85.93. I mean, if you're looking at those highs, this 86 is huge resistance. Obviously, if it breaks above there, all bets are off. But you can bet that there's high frequency guys looking at that level as well. I even see some institutional size at 86. So you can say that 86 is definitely going to be early resistance for this stock, Joel.
Another potential trade for it is if you don't want to stick your head out at 86, let it go through 86, and then sometimes when it comes back down through that level is really the more the valid short. AT&T, Dennis, up 44 cents. What a monumental move for that stock.
AT&T reported earnings this morning. Actually lifted as high as 31.39s, pulled back a
Whew.
bit. I do have a trading position on in that one. We've talked about the resistance at 31.15. That's where the stock went ex-dividend. That was the high. It was that 31.15, 31.16 area that day, and that was actually the break even for the ex-dividend traders. So they've never, anybody that took that home for that dividend, never actually had a chance to break even until right about now. So I've got to think that that whole 31.15 to 16 area might provide some initial resistance.
Right. I have to agree, Dennis. I mean, I don't know. I would say 9 times out of 10, buying AT&T up 50 cents on the day is not a winning proposition. Not necessarily saying you have to short it, but 31.16, you're correct. That was the area that it gapped down from when it went ex-dividend. The level after that, I would use. What did you say the pre-market high was, Dennis?
31.39, but not a lot of stock. I was kind of right after the report. I think I was a
Okay.
little bit overdone. It's really consolidated in this 31.15 area, though, Joel. A lot of stock trading here around 31.15.
Would you draw any parallels here for the AT&T having good earnings to maybe Apple having good
Well, I think
earnings, or
some
am I?
people like to draw that parallel, but maybe not this morning because AT&T AT&T is up obviously, and Apple is down here. So hard to say. I mean, Apple kind of runs its own ship. These iPhones, obviously, if some are sold through AT&T, but at the same time they've got other distributors as well. So it's hard to say.
Okay, Netflix is now a double-digit stock once again.
Netflix, this is just a stock. Obviously, for the last few months, it's been doing pretty well. Came down, obviously, if you look at the chart a little bit longer term here. We bounced back in early this year from the $70 area to a ridiculous rally up over 133.43. Been drifting back down. Now gives a lot of that back, Joel. It's trading at 86 bucks here in the pre-market. Not a good day for Netflix.
No, but Dennis, I mean, it did come straight down last night off off the earnings numbers. But what I want to alert our traders again to here, and this really reminds me a lot of the Google. When it had the big spike down, the big spike up, and then the major consolidation.
Right.
Well, this is what you have now here in the pre-market in Netflix. Panic low at 84.50. Someone definitely hit the panic button there. Has traded a decent amount of volume, but we're down 15 bucks. If you've been shorting all the way through this gap and all the way up to 130 and you're holding on, now you get the thing. I mean, I can't really say it's opening into good support because if you would have asked me last night, I would have said there's good support at 90.
Yeah.
But it really kind of looks like it's going to consolidate here. And I mean, if you're short this thing and you took it home overnight, I mean, this is a gift. I mean, what's it going to do? Is it going to go down? Is it going to go down to 80 today?
I mean, it's possible, Joel. Like, obviously, if the thing goes down 15, it can go down 20. But you're right. There's going to be a lot of short covering in here, and that can make the stock bounce. I think that's probably why you've seen it bounce a couple of bucks here already in the pre-market. I mean, it finds that level, and then the shorts start to slowly wiggle out. And a lot of short traders don't trade pre-market. So you come in at the open, and they'll start buying it at the opening price, too, just covering their shorts. So that's something else to think about, too. It could be a setup for the stock to open at the low. If it starts making new lows on the day, though, I'd be nervous if I was playing it from the long side.
I mean, I'm not saying I'd buy the stock to go long.
Right,
Dennis.
you're
I'm
just saying if you're short it, maybe this is a dang good price to cover. You've just been handed 15 bucks.
But I would take 89.70 versus 83.70. If you want to go.
No,
No?
no, no. The thing's
Okay.
got definitely a tendency to bounce more so than go down more, I think, Joel. So you're just suckering me on that bet. Not saying, that I would buy the thing either and it's going to go up for sure. But when you see something fall 15 bucks, you often do get a little bit of a bounce. So the $3 bounce is definitely doable, probably in the pre-market. I mean, it's 87.
Okay.
You're trying to really rip me. I just bounced 50 cents in the
What did?
pre-market.
Okay. And when I looked at it, it was right there. Okay.
You got
All
the
right.
quotes ahead of me. You're like a high frequency guy. You're co-located. You see those quotes
Oh
before
yeah.
I do.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, I got the server right out in 8 Mile.
There you go.
Anyways, moving on. Big Lots market cap is definitely smaller today.
Big Lots market cap. This is a stock. I don't know. I'm not a big fan of these stores, and we don't usually talk fundamentals on this show. I used to be a shopper at Big Lots. Me and my wife used to go there, buy a lot of things 2 or 3 years ago. They've raised the prices on everything at that store, though. Like, it almost seems like they're bringing in like nicer stuff. I mean, the whole idea with Big Lots was to sell you, garbage at really cheap prices, and that was the whole angle. It was like, like cheaper than Walmart. Now they're actually bringing in some nice stuff in there and charging more. I don't know, like if they're trying to reinvent themselves, but I think it's a bad idea. I mean, I don't even shop there anymore. And I'm like, we're cheap over here, so we always like those discount stuff. You go in there, you can buy a box of cereal that fell off, the pallet because it's got a ding in it, and you get it for $1 cheaper than at Walmart. That was always the angle. You go in there, and it's kind of like, what are you going to find today? But now they're getting some nicer stuff, and I don't know. So I'm not a big fan of the stock anymore. I actually used to be an investor and a shareholder in this company, and I'm just not anymore just because I don't like the angle that they're going. That's my fundamental rant on Big Lots. Obviously, maybe they get some other upscale shoppers in there now, but you lose those discount shoppers when you all of a sudden raise prices, Joel.
All right, look at it. I mean, this thing's been straight down in the pre-market. We talk about a lot of these different pre-market formations. This is the one that's been straight down. It's hardly gotten a bounce. It doesn't have the consolidation that you did in the Netflix. I would really be very careful around this 37.50 area. I'm looking at the low in the pre-market. The low's been under at 38 bucks. Well, it's been
Actually,
lower
it's
than that.
lower right now. It just went through right now, Joel. 37.63.
37.60 has been the low in the pre-market. I guess if we're going to talk about pre-market, better be aware of the levels. But that coincides with the lows back in early January, mid-January, 37.6, 37.12, 37.48.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I would be careful shorting this thing at 37.5 all the way down to 37. I think you'll get down there, then I think you have to get some kind of bounce.
Yeah, I think it probably could get a bounce here. But long term, I don't like Big Lots. I just gave my rant on it.
Yeah, stuff is too nice, Dennis.
Stuff's too nice. I got to sell crap. I love that thing when I used to go in there and you see some box that's banged up, and you get it for half the price because the box is banged up. I mean, the product's still good in the shelf. That was the whole, and I think they still sell some stuff like that, but the stuff's getting too nice, Joel. It's like an upscale shop now.
It's good. Next time I need to buy you a gift, Dennis. I know where your taste lies. All right, the Hershey chart is looking sweet for investors.
Hershey Kiss is actually getting a pretty good bounce here in the pre-market. 64.50. I mean, Kellogg yesterday obviously reported very, and they're not the identical company, but they're both food stocks. One's candy, one's obviously a little bit more of cereal, probably more than anything. But still, food is food, and they kind of usually track together. But Hershey's is going up. Maybe everybody's got a sweet tooth right now. I'm not sure. But nice earnings results after Kellogg reported disappointing results. 64.5 is where it's trading. I see major resistance up in the 65 area. I even see some institutional selling pressure up there. If that thing continues to go higher, I think 65 will initially put a lid on it. Takes out 65, then it can move higher.
I'm not putting a lot of validity in this pre-market move, Dennis.
Not a lot of volume up here, Joel. There's only been 3,300 shares traded up here. So that is just not a lot of volume. So obviously, and it's still 90-cent spread, 64 bid to 64.90. So it's hard to say. It may open up here around the $64 area even, Joel.
Right, and I would even say that a smart seller, let's say they wanted to get rid of a piece at 53,000, 50,000 or whatever.
Yeah.
If it opened up at 64.50, I would tell my broker to take it down to 63.30. I would whack it down to that level. That's been a triple top back from the last 3 days, 63.30. I could see it easily getting back down at that level. If it broke down below 63.30, I think all bets are off on the long side. But I think this 64.50 level is just a way overshoot. I mean, this stock trades decent. That really doesn't trade that great of a volume, does it, Dennis? 1 million shares. So not a lot of pre-market. Buyer beware if you're buying this thing at 64.5.
United Technologies, Joel reported here too this morning. It's up about $1.25 right now, trading at $81. I've seen quite a bit of size going by, so it seems like this $81 is the number in the pre-market. Looking at the chart here, you've got 3 or 4 tops from the last few days in this 81.60 to 81.50 area. So I think if it really got a lift, I think that's where you'd really find some more resistance. So if 81 goes, then maybe this whole 81.50 area. Joel, what do you think of that?
I agree, Dennis. I taught you well with technical analysis here. That's good resistance. The stop has really fallen off a cliff since making a high back with the rest of the market at 87.50. We've sold off, found a nice home at 78, trying to get a bounce, but people are definitely trying to wiggle out at that level. 5 in the pre-market's okay. I would definitely keep an eye on that 81.60 level. I would even start at 81.50. The high in the pre-market's been 81, so a little bit of ways from there. But Dennis, it's funny, we were talking about all these good earnings, and ever since we've been talking about that, the SPOOs have been going down.
Up only 2 here now, Joel. So obviously the market overall is getting a little bit nervous. Just to touch on a couple other earnings, though, before we close up the show. Radio Shack. I mean, Radio Sack, you might as well call it. This thing, honestly, is like clockwork. Every time it reports earnings, it disappoints. It's a perennial disappointer. It does the same thing again. It's trading down another 12% again. I don't know how you can own this stock. I think last time the thing gapped down $3 or $4, Joel, off of earnings, and I think we were saying the same thing. You just can't own the stock. Maybe it gets a little bounce, but it just continues to drift down. I mean, this story, if you think Best Buy is having trouble, Radio Shack is having a lot of trouble. Very, very, very difficult to own this. I honestly think if it doesn't get a takeover or something, I think the stock eventually probably goes to zero. So you're banking, if you're owning this thing, you're basically banking that somebody wants to buy, the company from possibly maybe its stores or where its locations are at. But very difficult to own this from a fundamental basis, Joel.
Right. Well, from electronics, brick and mortar, Dennis, we know what direction those things are holding. This is trading at multi-year lows here. I'm looking at the pre-market activity, Dennis, and we are just skimming along the low here, getting some. Well, actually, we're getting a little bit of a bounce, Dennis. 515 is the low that we hit in the pre-market. We're already back up to 535, so you could be getting a little people trying to cover some shorts that aren't as convinced as you, Dennis, that this thing's going to zero. It should be interesting to see if this thing could ever trade over $6 again. If you're stuck long this thing, hoping for a takeover or whatever, I just don't see the brick and mortar really being that much of a selling piece. But $6 is going to be resistance now until it goes to zero.
Texas Instruments we should touch on too, Joel. They reported there last night. The stock is getting a good lift after hours and in the pre-market this morning. This 33 area, though, I've seen a ton of stock here trade at 33, Joel. Maybe you can give us what the after hours high was in a second, but I'm just saying the consolidation area seems to be this 33, which would coincide from the highs from the last couple of days at 33.13 and 33.05. I would call this whole 33 area pretty major resistance, Joel.
Yep, 33.27. The spike it got a little bit before 5 o'clock, and then it's just steadily come down there. The resistance has come down from 33.27. You like to see those that double top area, 33.05, 33.13, be tested early. Definitely, I like that whole $33 level. It looks like the earnings are good, but not enough to push this thing back up to the $34 level. And then looking on the downside, Dennis, I don't know when this is going to come into play, but this whole 31.66 area, 31.70, major support. So if you're still holding on to this thing, put your stops up at that area, because I think if it takes out 31.60, we could be going back to the lower end of its range.
That's all I've really got from you on an earnings front. There's lots of other reports. We just don't have time to go into them all detail. There's a few of them up there on the market movers as well. So check your earnings calendar. There's hundreds of companies reporting earnings here this morning. So you want to be aware if your company is reporting earnings.